Hey everybody, Tim here with today's episode of Star Trek Voyager Season 2, Episode 1, the season premiere, the 37's. So this is technically the season premiere. The reason I say that is because there were 4 episodes that were produced during Season 1 and made during Season 1, but they held off on airing them. And so this is one of those episodes. It was actually supposed to be the Season 1 finale, but it got pushed back to Season 2. So overall, this episode was really good, like as far as like a one-shot, like kind of funny type of episode, but it didn't really leave any overall impact. You can kind of tell that it was supposed to be like a 2-part episode, like this big cliffhanger in there, and then they were like, oh crap, like it's going to only be 1 episode, and they cut a lot of shit out. The opening scene was a little too much for me, where they like find the car, and just that whole opening scene is way too long, where it's like, oh, it's ethanol and it's this and it's that, and of course Tom Paris is like, oh, that's called gasoline. And I don't know, it just seems like it's either really realistic or oversimplified, just the way all of the characters are like shown to interact with the car, where Harry's like, oh, this is the first hover car, and it's like, no, you're 100 years too late for that, or too early, and just Tom Paris explaining to them what a car is and stuff like that. And I don't know, it didn't work for me, because it made them all look really slow. And then when the car starts and it backfires, how they all jump away, like pulling phasers out. Like I said, I mean, that could be super realistic. Like, that could probably actually happen, since none of these people know what that's like, and it could actually scare all of them. But for whatever reason, maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it. When it happens and I'm watching them do it, it was just too cheesy, and it just didn't work for me. So I'm kind of curious what you guys think about that one. This is the first time in Star Trek that we've seen them purposely land the ship. They had talked about doing it all the way back to the original series, but they couldn't really afford to make it look good. The same with saucer separations, actually. If you go back and watch the original series, I talk about it in 2 of my reviews, that Kirk mentions saucer separation, but again, they couldn't get it to look right, so they did it with Next Generation. But we finally actually kind of see the Voyager land, and they kind of do it in a way where we don't really see it. We just see like a giant rock and half of Voyager's on the ground, so it's like, okay. So that was kind of interesting. But Harry mentions at one point that Mars is colonnaded in 2103, which is just kind of around the corner, so I'm kind of curious to see how close that prediction is. So overall, this episode is basically... it reminds me a lot of I think it was the Season 1 finale of The Next Generation, where they find all of the people that were cryogenically frozen, or you can go back to the original series and watch Space Seed, where it's a bunch of people from 1998. So it's a classic Star Trek storyline, where it's people who were abducted by aliens in 1937 and brought out here, and the main guest star, I guess you would say, is Amelia Earhart, who has been talked about for years. And so it's kind of interesting. So they find these people, and of course there's the obligatory scenes where it's like, oh, we're all speaking the same language. No, we have these translators. Oh, well, I think this is a dream. I think you're lying. I think there's this. And it's just these long, drawn-out scenes that we've seen over and over and over again. So again, I felt like it was unnecessary. Especially, like, if it was going to be 2 parts, then that could have been really cool. But since they cut it down to 1, like, I just get rid of all the scenes. Like, we don't need it. It's kind of funny to watch Amelia Earhart, like, at the comm, and, like, Tom Paris talking to her about how it goes warp 9.9, which is 4 billion miles a second. And I like stuff like that. That's the stuff that I kind of wanted to see more of. By the time we get to the end, it turns out that the aliens gathered, I think it was like 300 people. I forgot to write it down. And the people basically over-conquered the aliens, and they ran away, haven't been back, and now there's a whole, like, human civilization here. And Janeway says anybody who wants to stay can stay. She hopes that there's still more than 100 people left on Voyager, because otherwise you can't do the ship, like, with that few of people. And when she goes to see who wants to leave, it's the 37s, the people that she woke up, decide to go, but none of her crew decides to leave. They all want to stay with her and try to find their way back home. So that was kind of touching. And again, that's the type of stuff that I would wanted more of. If it had been 2 parts, that would have, again, made sense, because you got meeting the 37s and then meeting the new human race. But because they cut it down to 1, it's mostly the 37s, and I would have rather have seen the second half. But for those who have seen this one, what did you guys think about as a season 2 premiere? What would you have thought if it had been 2 parts? What did you think about the whole cryogenically frozen concept? Like I said, it's been done over and over again in Star Trek. And what are you guys excited for season 2? So go ahead, let me know in the comments below. Thank you guys for everything, and I will see you guys next time for Initiations.